Danny Kowalski stepped off the transport shuttle and took his first breath of recycled station air. The Galactic Academy of Interspecies Relations floated somewhere between 3 star systems, and it was the most prestigious school in the known universe. Danny was 19 years old, came from a small town in Ohio, and had no idea that he was about to become the most terrifying student the Academy had ever seen. The arrival hall was enormous. Thousands of alien students moved through the space, and Danny had never seen anything like them. Some floated, some crawled, some had too many legs, and others had none at all. A creature that looked like a walking jellyfish drifted past him, and Danny smiled and waved. The jellyfish creature changed colors rapidly and moved away very fast. Danny figured it was just shy. He found his way to the registration desk, where a small furry alien with enormous black eyes processed his documents. The alien's paws were shaking as it handed Danny his room key and class schedule. "You are the human," the alien said. It was not a question. "That's me," Danny said cheerfully. "Danny Kowalski. Nice to meet you." The alien made a sound that might have been a whimper and pressed itself against the back wall of its booth. Danny thanked it and walked toward the dormitories, wondering if he had said something wrong. His room was small, but comfortable. The bed had been specially reinforced, according to the welcome note, to accommodate his unusual mass density. Danny did not know what that meant, but the bed seemed fine to him. He unpacked his things, put up a poster of Lake Erie, and headed to his first class. The hallways of the academy were wide enough for species of all sizes. Danny walked down the center, and something strange happened. Other students moved out of his way. Not just moved, but pressed themselves against walls, ducked into doorways, and in one case actually climbed onto the ceiling to avoid him. Danny was confused. He was not a big person by human standards. He was average height, average build, with brown hair and a friendly face. But these aliens acted like he was some kind of monster. He found his classroom and took a seat near the back. The room was designed for many different body types, with floating platforms, water tanks, and regular chairs. Danny sat in a regular chair. The students around him immediately relocated to the other side of the room. Professor Velnix entered a few minutes later. She was a Kethrani, which meant she looked like a giant praying mantis made of purple crystal. She had 6 limbs, compound eyes that reflected the light in rainbow patterns, and a voice like wind chimes. "Welcome to Comparative Xenobiology. In this class, we will study how different species have adapted to their home environments." Her compound eyes landed on Danny, and she paused. Her antenna twitched rapidly. "We have a new student joining us this semester," she continued, her voice slightly higher than before. "A human, the first of his kind to attend this academy." Every eye, sensor, and optical organ in the room turned to look at Danny. He smiled awkwardly and gave a small wave. "Please make him feel welcome," Professor Velnix said, in a tone that suggested she was asking them to do something very brave. The class continued, and Danny tried to take notes, but the material was confusing. Professor Velnix talked about planetary classifications and survival adaptations, but she used terms Danny did not understand. What was a Category 1 garden world? Why did everyone gasp when she mentioned persistence predation? After class, Danny approached the professor's desk. "Excuse me, Professor," he said politely. "I'm having trouble with some of the basic concepts. Is there a study guide or something I could use to catch up?" Professor Velnix took 3 steps backward when he approached. Her limbs were trembling slightly. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course. I will send materials to your student account. The exam is in 2 weeks. It will cover planetary classifications and survival adaptations." "Thank you," Danny said. "I really appreciate it." He turned to leave, and Professor Velnix let out a breath she had apparently been holding. Outside the classroom, Danny nearly walked into another student. This one was different from the others. It looked like a cloud of glowing gas, contained in a vaguely humanoid shape. Two bright points of light served as eyes. "I am Zithra. You are the human." "That's me," Danny said. "Danny." "I would like to study with you," Zithra said, "if you are willing." Danny was surprised. This was the first student who had approached him voluntarily. "Sure," he said. "I could use the help. This material is pretty confusing." "Excellent," Zithra said. "I will meet you in the library tomorrow. I am curious about your species." Danny agreed and headed to the cafeteria for lunch. He got his food from a machine that scanned his biology and produced something that looked like meatloaf. It tasted pretty good. He sat down at an empty table. Within seconds, every other student at nearby tables had moved away. Danny ate alone, still confused about why everyone seemed so afraid of him. A large creature approached his table. It looked like a manatee that had learned to walk upright, with gray skin, gentle eyes, and flippers that had evolved into clumsy hands. It stood at the edge of Danny's table, trembling. "May I sit here?" it asked. Its voice was soft and wavering. "Of course," Danny said, gesturing to the empty seats around him. The creature sat down very slowly, never taking its eyes off Danny. "I am Torak," it said. "I sit next to you in class." "Nice to meet you, Torak," Danny said. "I'm Danny." Torak nodded. It did not eat, just sat there, watching Danny with wide eyes. "Are you okay?" Danny asked. "I am practicing," Torak said quietly. "Practicing what?" "Being brave." Danny did not understand, but he appreciated the company. He finished his meal and said goodbye to Torak, who let out a huge sigh of relief when Danny walked away. That night, Danny lay in his reinforced bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his first day. The other students were clearly uncomfortable around him, but he did not know why. He was just a normal person from Ohio. He liked hiking and camping. He played baseball in high school. He was not special in any way. He decided not to worry about it. People would warm up to him eventually. They always did. Meanwhile, in her office, Professor Velnix was sending an urgent message to the Academy administration. Her compound eyes reflected the glow of her screen as she typed. Request immediate consultation regarding safety protocols. First Category 9 Deathworld native enrolled in standard curriculum. Recommend review of examination procedures before practical assessment. She pressed send and sat back, her limbs clicking nervously. She had seen the human's file. She knew what Earth was. The question was whether the human knew it too. The Academy Library was a massive sphere floating at the center of the station. Books, data crystals, and holographic archives from 10,000 worlds filled its curved walls. Danny met Zithra at a study table near the xenobiology section, and they began working through Professor Velnix's materials. "I do not understand this," Danny said, pointing at his screen. "What is a Category 1 garden world?" Zithra's gaseous form rippled with what might have been surprise. "It is the standard classification for habitable planets. Category 1 means gentle climate, stable geology, minimal predators, and comfortable gravity. Most sapient species evolved on Category 1 worlds." "What category is Earth?" Danny asked. Zithra was silent for a long moment. The lights that served as its eyes flickered. "I do not know," it said finally. "Earth's file is restricted. I tried to access it yesterday, but most information is classified." "Earth is pretty normal. I mean, it's home," Zithra said. "Perhaps I can help you understand the material if I know more about your homeworld." Danny leaned back in his chair and thought about how to describe Earth. "Well, it's got oceans and continents, mountains, forests, deserts. The weather changes a lot depending on where you live. My hometown gets really hot in summer and pretty cold in winter." "How hot?" Zithra asked. Maybe 35 or 40 degrees Celsius on the worst days, and in winter it can drop to -20 sometimes. Zithra's form contracted sharply. You experience a temperature variance of 60 degrees? I guess so, Danny said. Is that a lot? My homeworld varies by 4 degrees annually, Zithra said quietly. A variance of 60 degrees would kill my entire species. Danny blinked. Really? That's just normal seasons for us. You get used to it. Zithra made a note on its datapad with a tendril of concentrated gas. Its movements were slightly jerky. Tell me about the predators on your world, it said. Danny laughed. Where do I start? There are big cats like lions and tigers, bears, wolves, sharks in the ocean, crocodiles, snakes. Some of them are venomous. Actually, a lot of things on Earth are venomous. Spiders, scorpions, jellyfish, even some lizards. Venomous, Zithra repeated. Your world has venomous creatures, multiple types. Hundreds of types probably, Danny said casually. But most of them won't kill you. You just get sick for a while. Zithra's glow had dimmed considerably. It looked like a cloud that was trying very hard not to rain. And these predators, it said carefully, how do humans survive among them? We're pretty good at avoiding them, Danny said, and we can fight back if we need to. Humans are actually pretty tough. We used to hunt mammoths and stuff, back in prehistoric times. You hunted creatures larger than yourselves? Much larger, Danny confirmed. It's called persistence hunting. We would track an animal for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Humans can run for a really long time. We sweat to cool down, so we don't overheat like other animals. Zithra had stopped taking notes. Its form was trembling. You pursued prey until it died of exhaustion, it said. This was your hunting strategy. One of them, Danny said. We also made weapons, spears, bows, traps. Humans are pretty creative. A soft thud made them both look up. Torok had approached their table and dropped his datapad in shock. He stood frozen, staring at Danny. Hello, Torok, Danny said. Want to study with us? Torok's mouth opened and closed several times. Finally, he sat down very slowly, his gentle eyes wide with terror. I heard what you said, Torok whispered. About the hunting. Yeah, persistence hunting, Danny said. It's pretty cool, actually. My uncle still does it sometimes. He's really into that traditional stuff. Your uncle hunts creatures to exhaustion, Torok said flatly. Currently, in your modern era. Just for sport, Danny said. We have grocery stores now. Torok looked at Zithra. Zithra looked at Torok. Neither of them said anything, but something passed between them. Over the next few days, word spread through the academy. The human study sessions became infamous. Other students would lurk nearby, pretending to read, while actually listening to Danny describe his homeworld. He talked about thunderstorms and how he used to sit on his porch and watch lightning split the sky. He mentioned tornadoes casually, describing how one had passed near his house when he was 8. He explained earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, and floods. Natural disasters are just part of life, Danny said one afternoon. You learn to deal with them. My grandma lived through 3 major floods. She always said it built character. A crystalline student named Crixall had been eavesdropping from a nearby table. It was a silicarn, a being made of living mineral that looked like a humanoid sculpture of quartz. Crixall finally stood up and approached. Your grandmother survived 3 floods, Crixall said, and continued living in the same location. She loved that house, Danny said. Said she'd never leave it. She finally passed away last year. Natural causes, at 94 years old. How did she die, if not from the disasters? Crixall asked. Her heart just stopped one night, Danny replied. She went peacefully in her sleep. Your species can regenerate from disasters, but eventually your internal organs cease function randomly, Crixall said slowly. That's one way to put it, I guess. Crixall sat down at their table without asking. Its crystal face was impossible to read, but it leaned forward with intense focus. I must know more, it said. The study group grew. Students who had been terrified of Danny began approaching, drawn by morbid fascination. Danny answered all their questions honestly, never understanding why his answers caused such strong reactions. He mentioned that he had broken his arm once as a child. The bone snapped, Torak said weakly. Your skeletal structure fractured. Yeah, it hurt pretty bad, Danny admitted. But it healed up in about 6 weeks. Good as new. It healed, Zithra repeated. The bone regenerated. That's what bones do, Danny said, confused. 3 students in the back of the library fainted. A human diplomatic attaché named Mira Delgado visited Danny in his dorm room that evening. She was stationed on Harmony Prime to help with humanity's integration into galactic society. She was calm, professional, and clearly aware of things Danny was not. I hear you've been making friends, she said. I think so, Danny said. They're a little weird, but they're nice. Mira smiled. I'm sure. Listen, Danny, humans have a certain reputation in galactic society. Some species find us impressive. Impressive? Danny repeated. Why? I'm just a normal guy. Exactly, Mira said. Just be yourself. Don't worry about the exam. You'll do fine. Danny went to bed early, planning to study more in the morning. In her quarters, Professor Velnix was reviewing Danny's academic records. She had finally obtained clearance to view Earth's full planetary file. What she read made her mandibles click in distress. The exam was in 1 week. It included a practical survival simulation. She had designed it to be challenging but fair for all species. She had not designed it for a creature that could chase prey until its heart exploded. She wondered if it was too late to change the test. The examination hall was the largest room Danny had ever seen. It was built like an amphitheater, with hundreds of seats rising in curved rows around a central stage. Different sections were modified for different species. Some seats floated in zero gravity. Others were filled with water or specialized atmospheres. The regular seats where Danny sat were surrounded by empty spaces, as if no one wanted to be too close to him. Professor Velnix stood at the center of the stage, her compound eyes scanning the assembled students. Behind her, massive holographic screens displayed the Academy seal. Welcome to your comparative xenobiology examination, she announced. This test has 3 sections. The first is written theory. The second is environmental analysis. The third is a practical survival simulation. A murmur passed through the crowd. The practical simulation was famously difficult. Many students failed it every year. You will be graded on your ability to apply course concepts to real scenarios, Professor Velnix continued. Points will be awarded for survival time, resource management, and adaptive thinking. Data pads were distributed to each student. Danny received his and looked at the first question. Describe the survival strategies a species might use in a high-gravity, high-radiation environment with limited water resources. Danny thought about it for a moment, then started writing. This seemed pretty straightforward. He just described what humans would do. Seek shelter during peak radiation hours, he wrote. Travel during dawn and dusk when temperatures are moderate. Conserve water through careful rationing and seek underground sources. The high gravity would require frequent rest, but short sprints of activity between rest periods would allow progress. Potential food sources include any radiation-resistant organisms, which could be tested for toxicity through small samples before consumption. He moved on to the next question, unaware that his answers were being flagged by the examination system and forwarded directly to Professor Velnix. In her monitoring station, Professor Velnix read Danny's response with growing alarm. He had described survival on a high-radiation world as challenging but manageable. Most species would have written detailed explanations of why such an environment was instantly lethal. The next question asked students to identify the threat level of various planetary characteristics. Danny marked active volcanic zones as moderate risk. He described extreme temperature fluctuations as requiring appropriate clothing. He classified large predatory fauna as avoidable with proper precautions. She forwarded the answers to the Academy administration with a note. Please observe, the human does not recognize lethal threats as lethal. The second section of the exam began. Holographic displays activated at each student's station, showing simulated planets. Students were asked to analyze the environments and classify their habitability. Danny's first scenario showed a rocky world with thin atmosphere, frequent dust storms, and temperatures ranging from -50 to +30 degrees Celsius. Classification: marginally habitable with technological support, Danny wrote. Similar to Mars colonization projections from human space programs. Underground habitation recommended. Dust storms would require sealed structures, but are survivable with proper filtration. The system flagged his answer. He had classified a Category 6 hazard world as marginally habitable. His second scenario showed an ocean world with violent storms, crushing depths, and massive aquatic predators. Danny classified it as habitable with naval technology, and noted that humans have experience with ocean environments and large marine predators. Reference whaling history. More flags, more urgent messages to administration. His third scenario showed a world very similar to Earth. Varied climate, diverse predator populations, active geology, and a 21% oxygen atmosphere. Danny smiled and wrote, classification, garden world. Highly habitable, comfortable gravity, breathable atmosphere, abundant water, and diverse ecosystem. Excellent candidate for colonization. Note: predator populations would require standard wildlife management protocols. This answer caused the examination system to send an emergency alert. Danny had classified a Category 9 death world as a garden world. The forest reminded him of camping trips with his dad. What he did not know was that his simulation was being broadcast to the main screens in the amphitheater. Every student and professor in the hall was watching. Danny started walking, looking for a water source. He found a small stream after about 10 minutes and took a long drink. In the amphitheater, a Kethrani student gasped. He drank unpurified water, it whispered. He will die of parasites. But Danny did not die. He kept walking, following the stream, until he found a clearing that looked defensible. He began gathering materials for a shelter. The watching students saw him break branches with his bare hands. They saw him lift rocks that would have crushed most species. They saw him move with a constant, steady efficiency that never seemed to tire. "What is he doing?" Torak asked Zithra. They were sitting together in the amphitheater, watching the screens with horrified fascination. "Building something," Zithra replied. "A structure." Danny completed his shelter in under an hour. It was a simple lean-to design, branches woven together and sealed with mud and leaves. He crawled inside and announced to no one in particular that it would keep the rain out. Night fell in the simulation. The temperature dropped. Danny's breath became visible in the cold air. In the amphitheater, students held their breath. A 15-degree temperature drop would be fatal to most species within minutes. Danny pulled his jacket tighter around himself and fell asleep. "He is sleeping," Crixall said, its crystalline voice ringing with disbelief. "In lethal cold, without specialized equipment. His body is maintaining its internal temperature," Professor Velnix reported from her monitoring station. Her voice was faint. "He is adapting. His metabolism has increased to compensate for the cold." Danny woke at dawn and stretched. His back was a little sore from sleeping on the ground, but he felt fine. He emerged from his shelter and began looking for food. He found edible berries first, recognizing them from a wilderness survival course he had taken for fun back on Earth. He ate a handful and moved on. Then he found tracks. In the amphitheater, the holographic display zoomed in on Danny's face. His expression had changed. He was smiling, but it was a different kind of smile. Focused, intent. "What is he looking at?" someone asked. "Prey tracks," Professor Velnik said quietly. "He has found prey tracks." Danny began to follow the tracks, and he did not stop. For the next 3 hours, the Academy watched a human hunt. Danny walked at a steady pace, never running, never stopping. He tracked his prey through forests, across streams, up hills. When he lost the trail, he circled back and found it again. When the terrain became difficult, he climbed over obstacles that would have blocked other species entirely. The prey animal was visible on the simulation's cameras. It was a deer-like creature, fast and agile. It would sprint away whenever it heard Danny approaching. But Danny never sprinted. He just kept walking. The deer ran, rested, ran again, rested less, ran again. Danny walked, and walked, and walked. "His cardiopulmonary system is remarkable," Professor Velnik observed. "He is not even breathing heavily. His body is releasing heat through the skin, allowing continuous exertion without overheating." "He is going to kill it," Torok said, "by walking." After 4 hours, the deer collapsed. Its heart had given out from the stress of continuous flight. Danny approached it calmly and did not even seem surprised. In the amphitheater, no one made a sound. They had just watched a predator from a nightmare world demonstrate exactly why his species had conquered their planet. Danny looked directly at the simulation's camera and asked, "Does this count as passing?" The silence stretched for a very long time. Danny built a fire next. The amphitheater watched him gather dry wood, arrange it in a specific pattern, and then do something that made several students scream. He picked up 2 sticks, placed dry grass between them, and began rubbing them together very fast. Smoke appeared, then a spark, then flame. "He created combustion," a Vorelian whispered, "with his hands. He created fire through friction." "That is impossible," another student said. "The precision required, the sustained effort, the heat resistance of his skin." "Clearly not impossible," Professor Velnik replied weakly. "We are watching him do it." Danny cooked portions of the deer over his fire. He ate slowly, looking satisfied. When a simulated predator appeared at the edge of the clearing, attracted by the smell of cooking meat, Danny did not run. He stood up, grabbed a burning branch from his fire, and walked toward the predator. The creature was large and muscular, with 6 legs and a mouthful of teeth. It was designed to be the most dangerous obstacle in the simulation. It had ended the tests of dozens of students over the years. Danny shouted at it and waved his fire. The predator backed away, confused. This was not normal prey behavior. Prey was supposed to run. This creature was advancing, holding burning plant matter and making loud, aggressive sounds. Danny threw a rock. His arm moved with shocking speed, and the rock struck the predator's nose with enough force to draw blood. The creature yelped and retreated further. Danny threw another rock, then another. He kept advancing, shouting and throwing, until the predator fled into the forest. In the amphitheater, a Nephilim student lost cohesion and had to be collected in a containment jar. Torak was gripping his seat so hard that his flippers had turned white. "He attacked it," Zithra said, its voice barely a whisper. "The apex predator of the simulation. He attacked it with rocks and fire, and it ran away." "His ancestors hunted animals 10 times that size," Crixall replied. "I researched it. They hunted woolly mammoths, saber-toothed cats, giant bears. They drove them all to extinction. Extinction, Torak repeated numbly. They killed every single one. The simulation continued. Danny survived the night by keeping his fire burning and taking shifts of sleep. When morning came, he explored further, finding more water and more food. A venomous snake tried to bite him, but he caught it behind its head with reflexes that the monitoring equipment could barely track. He examined the snake, said something about it looking like a copperhead, and then killed it with a quick motion. The venom would have been lethal to most carbon-based species, Professor Velnix announced, her voice mechanical with shock. He neutralized the threat in approximately 1.4 seconds. The simulation ran for 12 hours. Danny was showing no signs of stopping. He had built a more permanent shelter, established a reliable food supply, and created multiple tools from stone and wood. He had defended himself against 3 predator attacks and 1 simulated natural disaster. Finally, the simulation ended, the forest faded, and Danny stood alone in his holographic pod, blinking in the sudden brightness. "Time complete," the automated voice said. "Survival duration, maximum. Resources acquired, exceptional. Threats neutralized, total. Score, perfect." Danny shrugged and walked out of the pod. The amphitheater was completely silent. Hundreds of aliens stared at him with expressions ranging from terror to awe to complete incomprehension. Danny smiled awkwardly and waved. "How did I do?" he asked. Professor Velnix descended from her monitoring station. Her limbs were trembling so badly that she had difficulty walking. She approached Danny slowly, the way one might approach an unexploded bomb. "Danny," she said carefully, "I would like you to describe your homeworld for the class." "Earth?" Danny said. "Sure, I guess. What do you want to know?" "Everything," Professor Velnix said. "Please, tell us everything." Danny thought for a moment. He did not understand why everyone was staring at him, but he was happy to talk about home. "Well, Earth is pretty great," he began. "I grew up in Ohio, which is in the middle of the country. We get all 4 seasons there. Summers are hot and humid, lots of thunderstorms. I used to love sitting on the porch and watching the lightning. It's really beautiful." "Lightning," someone in the audience whispered. "Atmospheric electrical discharge, lethal." "Winters are cold," Danny continued. "Lots of snow. My dad and I used to go ice fishing. You drill a hole in a frozen lake and catch fish through the ice. The lake would freeze solid enough to drive a car on." "Solid frozen water," another student murmured. "Temperature below 0, extended exposure. Springs are nice, but we get tornadoes sometimes. One came pretty close to our house when I was a kid. We hid in the basement until it passed. My mom was scared, but I thought it was kind of exciting." Professor Velnix pulled up Earth's full planetary file on the main display. It appeared in glowing text for the entire amphitheater to see. Planet Earth, Solar System, Sol, Classification, Category 9, Deathworld. Gravity, 1.0 standard, high. Atmospheric oxygen, 21%, combustible. Axial tilt, 23.5 degrees, extreme seasonal variation. Tectonic activity, continuous. Volcanic activity, significant. Ocean coverage, 71%. Predator species, millions. Venomous species, thousands. Atmospheric electrical events, common. Extreme weather events, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts. Native sapient species, human. Classification, apex persistence predator. Notable characteristics: extreme environmental tolerance, rapid tissue regeneration, endurance-based hunting strategy, pack bonding psychology, consumption of chemical irritants and neurotoxins as flavor enhancers, tolerance of high radiation, extreme temperatures, and atmospheric toxins, attachments to dangerous predators. Warning: Deathworld natives may not recognize lethal environments as threatening. Exercise caution. The amphitheater was silent. Danny read the display with growing confusion. "Category 9 Deathworld?" he said. "That seems a little dramatic. Earth is nice." "You consume neurotoxins as flavor enhancers," Professor Velnix said faintly. "You mean spicy food?" "Yeah, I love spicy food. There's this hot sauce my uncle makes that's amazing. It'll clear your sinuses right out." "Capsaicin is a chemical weapon," Crixel said from the audience. "It causes severe pain in most species. It is used in security deterrence." "It's just peppers," Danny said, still confused. Torak stood up. His voice was shaking, but he spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Your file says you form emotional attachments to dangerous predators," he said. "What does that mean?" "Oh, you mean pets?" "Yeah, humans love pets. I have a dog back home. His name is Buster. He's a German Shepherd. Best friend I ever had." "Dogs are descended from wolves," Zithra said quietly. "Pack hunters, capable of killing adult humans." "Buster would never hurt anyone," Danny said. "Well, except maybe a burglar. He's very protective." Professor Velnix made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "You befriended a predator," she said, "and trained it to protect you." "Lots of humans do that," Danny said. "Some people have cats. Some people have exotic pets like snakes or spiders. My neighbor growing up had a parrot that could swear." He looked around at the stunned faces of his classmates. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. "You all look really freaked out." Professor Velnix took a deep breath. Her compound eyes reflected Danny's concerned face 1,000 times over. "No, Danny," she said. "You did nothing wrong. You are simply exactly what your planet made you." Danny thought about this for a moment. "So," he said slowly, "does this mean I passed the exam?" The laughter that followed was tinged with hysteria. But it was laughter, and somehow that made everything seem a little less terrifying. 1 week after the exam, Danny Kowalski had become the most famous student in the history of the Galactic Academy. His test results were being studied by xenobiologists across 17 star systems. His casual descriptions of Earth had been compiled into a document titled Observations of a Deathworld Native, primary source material. 3 separate academic papers were being written about his hunting demonstration. Danny did not understand any of this. He just knew that people had stopped running away from him. It started small. A student would approach him in the hallway and ask a question. Not a fearful question, but a curious one. What did lightning smell like? How did it feel to be cold? What exactly was spicy, and why did humans enjoy it? Danny answered every question honestly. He liked talking to people. Back on Earth, he had been the kind of person who made friends everywhere he went. Now, finally, that seemed to be happening here too. Zithra remained his closest friend. The gaseous alien had overcome its initial terror and developed a genuine fascination with humanity. It was writing a thesis on human adaptability, and Danny had agreed to be its primary research subject. "Explain adrenaline again," Zithra said one afternoon in the library. They were sitting at their usual table, surrounded by students who no longer pretended to be reading. "It's like a boost," Danny explained. "When you're in danger, or excited, or scared, your body releases adrenaline. Your heart beats faster. You get stronger and quicker. Time seems to slow down a little. It's how humans deal with emergencies. Your body has a built-in emergency enhancement system," Zithra said, taking notes. "Activated by threats. Or roller coasters," Danny added. "Or horror movies. Or asking someone out on a date. It's not just danger. It's any intense emotion. You voluntarily trigger this response for entertainment," Zithra said flatly. "All the time. Some people are adrenaline junkies. They skydive, bungee jump, climb mountains. My cousin does this thing called base jumping, where he throws himself off buildings with a parachute." A collective gasp came from the eavesdropping students. Danny was used to this now. Torak had become a regular member of their study group. The gentle Varelian had conquered his fear through constant exposure, and Danny considered him a good friend. They could not have been more different biologically speaking. Torok came from a world with low gravity, stable temperatures, and no predators. The most dangerous thing on his planet was a slightly aggressive flowering plant. "I do not understand pack bonding," Torok said one day. "Your file says humans form emotional attachments to other beings, even dangerous ones. Why?" "I don't know, exactly. We just do. Humans need connection. We need people to care about, and people who care about us. It makes us feel safe." "But you befriend predators," Torok said. "Dogs, cats, creatures that could harm you." "That's different," Danny said. "When you raise an animal from a baby, when you feed it and care for it and spend time with it, it becomes family. My dog Buster would protect me with his life, and I would protect him." Torok was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I think I understand. In a dangerous world, bonds are survival. You protect each other." "Exactly," Danny said, smiling. Crixall, the crystalline silicarn, had joined their group as well. It was writing an academic paper titled The Impossible Species, Human Survival Strategies in Context. Danny found its blunt questions refreshing. "You heal from wounds that would kill most species," Crixall said one afternoon. "Broken bones regenerate." "How?" "Our bodies just do that," Danny said. "It takes time, but we can recover from almost anything. I knew a guy who lost an arm in an accident. He got a prosthetic and went back to work like nothing happened." "Your species loses limbs and continues functioning," Crixall said, its crystalline face somehow conveying disbelief. "People adapt," Danny said. "That's what humans do." Professor Velnix invited Danny to co-lecture in her class. The first session drew the largest attendance in Academy history. Students came from every department, every species, every background. They filled the amphitheater and spilled into the hallways, watching on screens. Danny stood at the center of the stage, feeling slightly nervous. Public speaking was not his strength. "Thanks for coming," he said. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to talk about. Professor Velnix asked me to share some things about Earth." He paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces. "I think maybe you all see Earth as this terrifying place," he continued. "And I guess it is, compared to some worlds. But to me, it's just home. It's where I learned to ride a bike, and where I had my first kiss, and where my mom makes the best apple pie in the universe." He smiled at a memory. "Yeah, there are dangers, storms and predators and all that. But there's also beauty. Have you ever seen the sun rise over mountains? Or watched fireflies light up the summer night? Or stood at the edge of an ocean and felt like you were looking at infinity?" The amphitheater was silent, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not fear, something closer to wonder. "Humans evolved on a tough world," Danny said. "It made us resilient, but it also made us appreciate the good stuff. Every peaceful moment, every beautiful sunset, every hug from someone we love. Those things matter more because we know they're not guaranteed." He looked directly at Torok. "I think that's why we pack bond. Life is scary, but it's less scary when you're not alone." After the lecture, students lined up to talk to Danny. They asked about everything from weather patterns to family structures to human music. Danny answered patiently, never condescending, never acting like any question was stupid. Mira Delgado visited him that evening. She looked pleased. "You've done something remarkable," she told him. "Humanity's integration into the Confederation has been fast-tracked. The other species were terrified of us. Now they're curious, and curiosity is the beginning of friendship." "I didn't really do anything. I just answered questions." "Sometimes that's enough," Mira replied. Over the following months, Danny became an informal ambassador for his species. He started a study group called Deathworld Survivors 101, where he taught other students basic survival skills. He had to modify everything heavily, because most species could not tolerate human-level exercise. But the concepts remained the same. Observe your environment. Use available resources. Stay calm under pressure. Torak became his best friend. The unlikely pair spent hours together, sharing stories about their wildly different homeworlds. Danny learned about Varelian poetry, which was sung in frequencies his ears could barely hear. Torak learned about human camping, which he found both horrifying and fascinating. Zithra completed its thesis on human adaptability. It was published in the most prestigious xenobiology journal in the Confederation and sparked a wave of academic interest in Earth. Scientists began submitting requests to visit the Category 9 Deathworld, though most of them required extensive environmental suits just to survive a few hours. Crixol's paper, The Impossible Species, became required reading for first-year students at the Academy. It argued that humans should not exist according to conventional evolutionary theory, and yet they not only existed, but thrived. The paper concluded with a simple observation. Perhaps the universe is more resilient than we believed, and life more stubborn than we imagined. Professor Velnix apologized to Danny privately. She admitted that she had tried to have him removed from her class before the exam, fearing he would be dangerous. "I was wrong," she said. "You are dangerous, certainly, but you are also kind. Your species is terrifying and wonderful in equal measure." "Thanks, I think," Danny said. "It is a compliment," Professor Velnix assured him. "The highest I know how to give." On the last day of the semester, Danny sat in the Academy cafeteria with his friends. The table that had once been empty and avoided was now crowded with beings of all shapes and sizes. Zithra floated beside him, its gaseous form shimmering with contentment. Torak sat across from him, no longer trembling. Crixol was there, along with a dozen other students who had overcome their fear and found a friend. "Tell the tornado story again," Zithra requested. Torak leaned forward eagerly. Crixol activated its recording device. Danny smiled. He was used to this request by now. "Okay," he said. "So there I was, 8 years old, standing on my back porch. The sky was this weird green color, and the wind was picking up." Around the table, his alien friends listened with rapt attention. They would never fully understand what it was like to grow up on a death world. But they understood Danny, and in the end, that was enough. The human from Ohio had come to the stars, expecting to be the strange one. Instead, he had discovered that everyone was strange, in their own way. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and the greatest wonder of all was that beings so different could still find common ground. Danny finished his story. His friends laughed and asked questions. The cafeteria hummed with the sound of 100 different species going about their lives. And somewhere in the back of the room, a new student, a young Kethrani, just arrived at the academy, watched the human with wide, compound eyes. It had heard the stories. It was terrified. But it was also curious. And curiosity, as Mira had said, was the beginning of friendship.